Well, welcome back to our Survive and Thrive series, and I am with Carolyn Edlund once again from Artsy Shack. Thank you for coming in again, Carolyn.
Hey, Graham, how are you doing?
I'm very well. We also want to put out a big hello to the Clark Hulings Fund, which is operated with Elizabeth and Penelope in New York. Some fantastic ladies that are very much part and parcel of what we do these days as well. What we wanted to talk about today was about sponsorship. And how do we go about getting sponsors to either back us for our art career or back us to be on the Colour in Your Life series. And you've got some questions that you wanted to ask me. I mean, you actually help a lot of artists manage their careers, set things up for them, give them better vision on what they need to do. But part and parcel of what we do is specialising in helping people get grants and funding and sponsorship money to be able to move forward to be part of what we do as well.
Right. Yeah, I think, this can be a really difficult subject for artists, and it's such an important conversation to have, because when you're an artist and you're asking someone to sponsor you, it's not asking them to buy a piece of your art. You might give them, a gift of a piece of your art or a print or whatever, but when you're asking them to sponsor you, you're asking them to believe in you. You're asking them to put some money or some kind of a donation behind their belief in you. And that's a pretty heavy lift for some people.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I think a lot of artists shy away from. And but on the flip side of that, I want you to think about the people who are your fans, who believe in you, people that you might know, collectors, people who run art centers or know people who are donors. And those people may actually be really thrilled to be asked to help an artist advance their career and share their story, and even to be acknowledged as a sponsor of them. That's like being a patron, and so that's a very, very special thing to do. But there's, I think, a lot to think through in deciding, how do I get a sponsor? Who might they be? How do I ask them? And I know you've had a lot of experience with artists who are doing this, and you're advising artists to do this. So, for example, if you had an artist who needed to come up with a few $1,000s or whatever to sponsor, to make whatever happen, what is your advice to them if they come to you and say, how do I get started?
Well, I would say, depending on the size of the project, but if you as an example, if you wanted to be on Colour in Your Life, and there are different aspects of sponsorship as it goes through. I mean, they fall into a couple of different categories. But I'd say if somebody wanted to be on the television series, and we have a number of people that are sponsored by wineries, real estate agents. One of our big sponsors was Luke Senior from Senior's Art Supplies, Alex Holzer from Hydrocryl, because they're in the arts situation in the first place. They wanted to be able to promote their products. So we had a number of artists approach them, and also in the end, the sponsors started coming to us because they well realised that we had a platform, an international platform, that could market and promote their business that they hadn't had before. So we were literally just joining the synergies together. The artist was afraid to ask, and that's my job sometimes, is identifying who can actually do this. The art store is obviously fantastic, but the biggest thing that artists go through is rejection and the word no. And that stops them always from initially going out and speaking to somebody about, well, this is what I do. And part and parcel of what you and I have spoken about before is the validity of the story that you actually have to be able to sell yourself and your artwork to this person. And always on the back end is that, what's the WIFM for the person that you're approaching for a start? I mean, many of them don't do this on a philanthropic basis. I mean, if somebody donates $1 million to a cause, that's philanthropy. But if you're approaching somebody on behalf of, so what's in it for them, they're getting the advertising and the marketing, and they're getting the brand name of their particular brand in conjunction with the arts as well. So it's a feel-good situation in the end as well.
I think you're absolutely right. If you're talking about an advertiser, and interestingly enough, you mentioned a real estate agency that's sponsoring an artist.
Mhm.
If you look at the type of show you have, which is fine art, it's amazing work. There's a whole aura about that. It's kind of a high end. Art collecting and understanding art is something that's, I think it's a little more high profile. It's something that you may want your brand to be associated with. And interestingly enough, I just read an article the other day in a magazine for realtors. And a realtor was talking about how she actually commissioned an artist to create a mural in a high-end property because she wanted that property to be associated with collectors and art.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to be associated with the arts, whether it's, wine, I mean, how many art openings have wine and cheese? And it's a perfect marriage to have art and wine, or art and, high-end properties and that kind of thing. I think a lot of those go together. So when you're creating your story to kind of sell them on that, I think you'd have to customize that to their industry. But aren't there a lot of things in common, that you might reach out to the same viewer?
Oh, without a doubt. And there's just so many different avenues and things that you wouldn't expect. I mean, the biggest part of getting sponsorship is to ask for sponsorship, which is simply what they don't do. And as I said, make it regional. I mean, even with the series that we did down in a place called Armandale, we ended up getting sponsored by the local motorcycle company. So they gave us the Harley Davidson for when I was there, and then they also chipped in money, because what we did is I rode past the actual motorcycle shop, sort of pulled in and was talking to the guys, and it's sort of like, take the bike, away you go. And it was all sort of ad lib. There was no, but their brand, literally, look at these guys. They're in the middle of the country. They don't get a lot of advertising at the best, and all of a sudden you've got everybody across Australia and the world going, there's a Harley Davidson store in that place there. So just once again, one of those things that you wouldn't expect.
I bet they have made their money back many times over just in the exposure. So it's amazing. I mean, what is exposure worth? What is being seen and having your name associated with the arts worth? So yeah, I love that story. I think that's great. And we were just talking a few minutes ago before we got started filming about an artist that I know who is being sponsored by a vodka company. So why not? I think, that, and she recommended, that we suggest that they sponsor the Clark Hulings Fund podcast. So, and I hope they do. Yeah. But what do you do if you're running the show? And so you've gotten people approach you, but what if you wanted to approach a sponsor? What would you tell them about the artists who are being filmed?
Once again, we've done this with Luke Senior from Senior's Art Supplies in Melbourne in Australia, and we do this with a number of companies across the world now. But it's advantageous to him, because what we do then is that if they're prepared to put the money up to sponsor an artist, we find the best artists as well. So that the sponsor can be part and parcel of, creating the promotion for Colour in Your Life, but for the arts in general. And sometimes if you've got a heavy hitter on board, we did a series a show called The Three Amigos that had Alvaro Castanet, Jose Bugvik and Herman Peckel in it. And it was just a huge, huge show. We've had over 1 million views on the show, which is advertising that the sponsor just normally would not get under any circumstances. But Luke was wise enough to do this. He ended up sponsoring a couple of people as well, very high profile people. But once again, it helped his brand name. So it's not just the artist as such that gets the advantages out of it. It's definitely the sponsor that does that as well. Alex Holzer from Hydrocryl was the same situation. He sponsored about 8 artists altogether. And they were using his product. And he just said, wow, he said, the response I've gotten is unbelievable. He said, literally people all over the world know who I am now. Alex even opened up an office in New York and one in London because of the fact that there was so much interest in his product from Australia after doing that. So there's huge advantages for sponsors to come on board with this.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. It's kind of the flip side of, well, what does the artist want and what can they get from the sponsor? We look at some huge corporate sponsors. Like I know an artist who's actually being sponsored by Coca-Cola. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Nike also has sponsored artists, and they put art on their sneakers because they want to be known as patrons of the arts. They want to be seen as supporting, culture and art in our countries, and also small business. And so I think you could take big corporations and say, well, you say you're for small business, you say you want to support this. Well, let's see, put your money, out there and support an artist and small business. And so they get a lot of credit for doing that. So that really redounds to them as well. I think that's an excellent idea. Great.
And it also comes down to, you were talking about your circle of friends as well. Apart from, say, regional sponsors or national sponsors, is that if you've been doing this for a while and you want to sell paintings, which is the theme of what we do anyway, is to try and help artists sell paintings, which is what Colour on Your Life does. But I always say to them, look, you've got obviously a list of people that have bought your paintings over the years. I said, and you don't have the money to be on the show. Why don't you go and tell them your story again so that they understand where you've come to and the next level that you're going to, and get them to, don't ask them, will you? Just say, I would like you to. And there's the difference between selling something to somebody and having them buy it. You sort of say, I would like you to purchase some of my work so I have the opportunity to go on this show. The word no is a big thing with artists under any circumstances, rejection. But I've had a number of artists that have gone and done that, exactly done that. They're not Oliver Twist with an empty bowl. They're going along with substance to give to people. And that one gentleman sold 7 paintings in 72 hours. And he said, I just paid all my bills off and I just got the money to be on your show. And he said, that's just nuts. And I said, well, they're there. They just didn't know your story and they didn't know the next level that you're going to. And people want to be part of other people's success. That's what this is about.
That is so true. But you're an artist. I was an artist for 20 years. We've been in your shoes. Everyone who's watching, we have been in your shoes, and it is hard to hear no. If you are a professional artist, you've heard it a lot. You've been rejected. You've had people say rude things. But that is such a small part of your experience. As an artist that most people love the arts. Now, that may be true, but can everybody buy from you? Can everybody sponsor you? No, they can't. So one thing that you need to understand by being in business, as a business person, you are a salesperson because you're selling your art and your story and your business. And you need to know that professional salespeople, they get over no really fast. Mm-hmm. And it's something that you can get used to. It's something that you can just accept and say, look, I know that 80% of people out there are going to say no to me. Maybe 90% of people are going to say no. So am I willing to ask 10 people for sponsorship and to give every effort, a real effort in every single one of those asks to get one yes? The truth is that, that's what you need to do. And it's also the truth for how many people buy art. Very few people buy original art. They're going to go to some discount store to buy something to put on the wall, and that's fine. They're not your customer. You're appealing to a very small part of the population who actually loves and appreciates and collects art. And there's also a very small part of the corporate, world that will sponsor an artist. But there are those people who understand the value and how important art is to the world. They want to be part of it, and they see your work as being important and aligned with what they do. So I think that if you get into the mindset where you understand that there are many no's, but the few yeses that you will get can really help fund your business, help you spread the word, and do things that you could not do otherwise. Just step up and do it and see what happens. You may be pleasantly surprised.
That's fantastic stuff. Well, Caroline, once again, we've had another great session with each other on our Survive and Thrive series. Also, you can come into the Colour in Your Life website. We have a landing page for the Clark Hulings Fund, and go in and see them as well, and Caroline too. We've got some great information, and we're here to help people out. But thank you once again, and remember, strive and thrive in this typical situation.
Thanks, Graham. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Carol.